New details have emerged that severely complicate the story of the so-called Victoria's Secret Karen, who went viral following a verbal altercation with a black woman back in 2021. Here's what I mean.
Oh God, no, excuse, now you are, oh my God. Girl, I never thought nothing like this would happen to me. She just tried to run and hit me. Don't record me.
Now, here are some of the basic details of what happened. So, Jemoma Ukenta is the woman who was recording it, right? So, she says that everything began when she was scanning the store's offering of underwear, and the woman, Abigail Elphick, started browsing items uncomfortably close to her. Ukenta says that she asked her to back up, but that Elphick instead went to the cash register and told an employee that Ukenta had just threatened her. Now, keep in mind that the interaction happened during the peak of the coronavirus pandemic in 2021, when social distancing measures were in fact in place. It's understandable for someone to want an individual standing too close to them to kind of back off a little bit. Now, Ukenta says that she decided to start recording the scene on video, which she says led to the confrontation that you saw on video, right? Now, Elphick asked multiple times for the recording to stop, which continued to escalate the situation. Now, after the initial scuffle, Elphick appears to chase Ukenta around the store while alleging that she threatened her. Then Elphick calls the police on her. Eventually, both the mall security guards and the police arrive, and Elphick appears to leave the mall. Now, in the reporting that came out back in 2021, here's what was said, here's what we knew, and then I'm gonna give you the updates, which I think are just as relevant. In what Ukenta says is the police report, Elphick said that what she did was wrong and that she experienced a panic attack after realizing Ukenta was recording her. She also said she had an anxiety disorder and was anxious about Ukenta recording her because she was afraid of losing her job and apartment. Okay, now in our previous reporting on this story, we agreed with that sentiment half-heartedly, basically saying that the reason for the anxiety attack was linked to the fact that she was being recorded. In fact, here is a snippet of how we covered it.
Look, to the heart of it, this is like, it's uncomfortable watching it.
Yeah.
So now she's having a full-scale breakdown. Fake or otherwise, it's just uncomfortable to look at. This country's a mess, and then I think part of the reason she's having the breakdown is there's a silver lining here, which is that the message is getting through. In the old days, you used to be able to push people around if they were minorities, etc., and get away with it. But now you can't because we all have phones. We put it on. People don't like it, and so. The crying isn't about what she did in the first place. The crying is about getting caught.
So that's not quite right, according to new information and new details that have come out. Now, the reason why we have new details is because Ukenta has decided to file a lawsuit against Elphick, against the mall, against the security, because she felt that they were negligent and that they didn't come to her aid quickly enough. But through these lawsuits, there's a discovery process, and through that discovery process, you learn more information about both parties involved. And after learning more information about the story, obviously it complicates the narrative, and it also makes me feel like a terrible person for just taking a viral video and reporting on it as if it was already adjudicated that Elphick was some terrible racist who did something terribly wrong. In reality, Elphick, 27, lives in a complex reserved for residents with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Her behavior stemmed not from a race-based problem, according to a complaint filed by her lawyers, but from fear that being filmed would lead to the loss of her apartment and job. Now look, living with developmental delays or mental health disorders in America is terrifying, and it's especially terrifying if you were able to secure some housing and a job, and that could all be threatened by someone filming you and putting that video out on the internet. So with that context, the freak out makes a little more sense. Now, it's unclear of Elphick's exact diagnosis, but according to a copy of the Bergen United Ways Rental Association, physical crime, felony or misdemeanor against a person or persons and or their property could disqualify them from their housing. Luckily, Tom Toronto, the president of the Counties United Way, which runs the residential complex where Elphick lives, called the video's aftermath a total loss of perspective and proportion. He said this: she has a disorder, she has anxiety, she had a meltdown. Then the world we live in took over and it became something entirely different than what it actually was. Because of the way that she was depicted, people did in fact try to get her fired, and they even threatened her life. As images of Elphick ricocheted around the world, an online commenter urged fellow viewers to contact a school district where Elphick had had an internship to demand that their racist employee be fired. She began getting harassing calls, and as recently as April, contacted the police to report that a man who referred to the Victoria's Secret video had called her and threatened to rape and kill her, court records show. Look, I don't know how you all feel about the updated details. I can only share how I feel about it. And I feel like a piece of trash, honestly, because I didn't even consider that maybe she has any mental health issues, or we just didn't know the full context. And we jumped on a story that was going viral, that was getting a lot of attention. And Waz, I feel a lot of remorse for doing some, not all, but some of these stories that demonize people without knowing the full details and possibly ruin their lives. And you forget sometimes that this job carries with it a lot of responsibility, because there's a lot of power involved in either improving people's lives or destroying people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of sympathy for the position you guys took back in 2021, considering what the climate was around, we were just coming off of 2020, which obviously was our great racial reckoning, summer and fall. And just this idea that some measure of justice that was oftentimes racialized could be enacted upon somebody, anybody, felt cathartic for a lot of people. And so, and myself included, I don't act like I'm above this. I completely understand that. I think now that we're sort of out of the slight hysteria of 2020 in a lot of ways, I think we can take stock of situations for what they are. We can't compare a cop shooting a guy in the back as an agent of the state and Capitol to some lady losing her nerve in the park and being mean to a random black guy. Like, those two entities are not equal. I think we need to be a little bit more, I want to say, empathetic towards private citizens, even when they make bad mistakes, even when those mistakes are racial in their, messed upness, to make up a word right there. I'm just of the opinion, and I've been of this opinion for a while now, that a private citizen shouldn't lose their way of feeding themselves, clothing themselves, and living in a home because they had a bad day at Victoria's Secret. Or the park example sticks out in my mind because it was just that was kind of when things clicked for me, where it was like, this guy might be being a little bit too precious here about his dog.
You're referring to the Amy Cooper story.
Yes.
Right? So I don't think I've ever talked about the updates on that story on this show. I've talked about it on a podcast, which got me into a lot of trouble, even though everything I was spitting were straight facts. But it's true. But yeah, the Amy Cooper story, that story, like the way it was reported, specifically specifically omitted really important context, right? And so, yeah, go ahead. What did you want to say about that?
No, what I wanted to say was that, I kind of looked back at it from the original and then getting a little bit more context about it and being like, this dude might have been being a little bit too precious about his dog. And he's there are times, I'm not saying this young woman from Victoria's Secret is one of those people, whereas people might weaponize the sort of racial climate in our society to their benefit. And those people might happen to be minorities, right? I know we're not in the great awakening anymore, but Menendez tried to come out and say
yes,
they can't handle a spicy
Latino?
Cuban, spicy Latino.
Yeah, and he's referring to Senator Bob Menendez, who's now facing more corruption charges in a separate corruption case. In 2015, he was facing corruption charges that they later dropped, mostly because there was a hung jury in that case.
And again, I'm not saying that we need to, look suspiciously upon anybody of color who says that, they experienced a messed up situation and there was a racialized component to it. I just think we feel so powerless in our society to make changes to anything. We collectively understand that there has been a collectivized racial wronging of several different types of people, whether they be indigenous, black people, brown people in this country. And a lot of times we feel like we want to right those wrongs in one fellow swoop. I would just encourage people to understand what the Karen is doing. Again, just to reiterate, what the Karen is doing at the park, or at and even the Karen as a pejorative is like, we might wanna move away from that.
Yeah, I definitely
But what the Karen is doing at Victoria's Secret at the park, I'm sorry, is not even related to a police officer, which oftentimes we've learned this.
Yeah.
Black officers, brown officers, white officers, what they're doing to poor, marginalized minority communities in this country, it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not related. We don't need to treat them the same way. Yeah, I kind of agree. If a guy shoots a dude in the back for no reason, he should lose his job as a police officer, 100%. But Amy from marketing, who had a bad day at the park in Williamsburg, I mean, she should get to sell,
Yeah.
Kleenex again. I don't know, that's just the position that I've kind of settled on. As again, I myself have evolved on these things as they've progressed over time.
Yeah, I think that, I wouldn't say I've evolved on the issue of racism. But I'm definitely a lot more skeptical of these viral videos because I'm realizing more and more that many of them do not provide the proper context to judge the actions of the bad person accurately, right? So look, the other thing I just want to quickly mention is, you mentioned incentives. And what I am a little bit concerned about is usually after these viral videos go viral, the individual who's been wronged sets up a crowdfunding account, right? On GoFundMe or whatever, and the donations start pouring in. And so in this particular case,
almost like Black Lives Matter. No, we're not doing that today. We're not gonna do that today.
So a GoFundMe campaign Ukenta created called "Help Me Defend Myself Against Karen" generated donations of more than $104,000.
Wait, hold on. What? Wait.
Yeah.
What defense? Like physical defense, legal defense?
Well, she did file a lawsuit against the mall and Elphick, so maybe she's using the funds for that. Although when reporters asked her, hey, where did that money go? She just refused to talk to them. In fact, she said some pretty funny things about basically like, oh, here we go, here's the quote. Let's go to graphic 9. So Abigail Elphick's counterclaim accuses Ukenta of basically exploiting this for financial gain. Ukenta has made a job out of preying on individuals from behind a keyboard, inciting hate while taking advantage of victims and the public at large for her financial gain. And then, they mentioned the GoFundMe. Ukenta has said online that she believed it was only fair that she should benefit financially from video content widely viewed on social media. Why wouldn't I want to make money off my videos if everyone else is? She wrote on X, the site formerly known as Twitter, 2 months after the incident. So if there is a financial incentive to basically, I don't know what happened prior to her filming, right? All we know is what both parties are alleging. But if it is widely known that after these incidents occur, the person who's been wronged can set up a GoFundMe page and collect $100,000 or more. I just think it provides the wrong incentives. You know?
Well, welcome to capitalism. But another thing that I will say is, what I mainly want people to take away from this segment is that the idea of picking up a pitchfork to burn someone at the internet stake is a very reactionary impulse.
Agreed, yeah.
It's illiberal as all hell. It's anti-humanistic. It's antisocial. It's messed up. And I think it's a wrong-headed impulse. I'm not saying every now and again we don't have a sort of, Old Testament sort of eye for an eye kind of mentality about things. But I think most of the people who call themselves being on the left, which I would consider most of the people who are picking up those pitchforks, I think we should try to stop and think if we are actually living up to our own ideals in those moments when, we try to literally assassinate the character of some stranger on the internet and ensure that they're never able to work or do things out in our society ever again because, again, of one bad incident.
Totally agree. Well said.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.